Social anxiety. There was one young man who got an invitation to a birthday party. He was at the time in middle school, and the girl that gave him the invitation was a girl that he liked. So he was very excited. And on the day of the party, he showed up to the party, and they had a swimming pool, and he got his swim trunks on, and then he ran out and he jumped in the swimming pool because he was so excited. But when he came out of the water, everyone was pointing at him and laughing. Now, it wasn't that his swimsuit had fallen down, it was that he forgot to take his socks off. So because he jumped in the pool with his socks still on, the other kids found this to be funny and pointed at him and laughed. And that blazed this memory in his mind that he felt so different, so embarrassed, that he'd started to develop a real fear of being embarrassed, being humiliated like that again. Soon he would stop accepting invitations to parties and gatherings, and soon he would stop being invited to parties and gatherings. It became a loop where the less he would accept these invites, the less he would receive invites like this. He really developed social anxiety. Social anxiety is the distress that a person feels that's directly connected to being called upon to socialize, to meet new people, to speak publicly. And so if you have social anxiety, you're going to experience a number of symptoms. Ultimately, you're going to have physical symptoms, behavioral symptoms, cognitive symptoms. But social anxiety can also be a disorder in which you have a mental health condition because of your persistent fear of social situations. People with social anxiety disorder often experience excessive self-consciousness, fear of being judged, fear of being embarrassed, fear of being humiliated in social situations and interactions. And it affects their mind, it affects their body, it affects their feelings. Does any of this sound familiar? Are you someone that experiences social anxiety? Do you know someone that experiences social anxiety? One woman said when she was afraid to speak in front of a group, other people said to her, "Come on, what is your problem? That's unacceptable. You're being weak. You're being silly." And she found this to be terribly invalidating of her disorder. When a person has social anxiety disorder, they will experience rapid heartbeat, trembling, sweating, blushing, dry mouth, perhaps nausea, perhaps vomiting, perhaps panic attacks in severe cases, all around this idea of just socializing. Now, don't get me wrong. Most people actually do feel some level of nervousness or anxiety around the idea that they'll have to meet a new person or speak in front of others or give a presentation. But it is very severe with those who suffer from social anxiety. So there's really levels to this understanding of social anxiety. So somewhere you have some level of social anxiety, because we all do. But for some people, the nausea can lead to vomiting. The panic attacks can be debilitating. Their legs can turn to jello, and they can have irritable bowel syndrome and so on. It affects then their behavior in their life when it's at the point of being a disorder, because then they start to avoid social situations, which will change their life entirely. Now they're not going to parties. They're not taking opportunities to speak publicly, and that's going to affect them professionally. Any scenario where they could be the center of attention, they avoid. That's going to affect them socially. In their thought patterns, they're feeling a fear of being judged, a fear of making mistakes. They have catastrophic thinking about potential outcomes. Oh, everyone's going to think I'm a fool. Everyone's going to think I'm ugly. Everyone's going to think I'm not good enough. I don't belong here. They don't like people like me. And all of these negative thoughts help to fuel the negative emotional state. So in the emotional state, what are they feeling? Fear, anxiety, dread, distress, a fear of loneliness, a fear of isolation, a fear of ostracism. So what we want to do is we want to be able to break down the social anxiety so that you can understand what you have to do in order to overcome it. And as you may remember, I am doing a special 5-week intensive on how to overcome social anxiety. So we can't cover everything and all of the strategies here tonight, but I can give you what you need to get started to overcome this, because you can cure your own social anxiety, and I will give you the cure. But recognize that although social anxiety is curable, it doesn't mean the rapid heartbeat that you're experiencing and the fear of what other people are thinking, it doesn't mean the sensations that you're experiencing are not real. And we have to look at how it affects our behavior so that it actually becomes to our own detriment. So now we're making less money as a result. We're less popular as a result. This affects our ability to select a good mate. This affects our ability to do virtually everything that involves other people. And so persons with social anxiety may try to seek occupations that they can be alone while doing. But when they do really well, then they get promoted and then they're managers and then they have to manage people, right? So we have to learn to overcome the social anxiety. It's okay if you are an introvert. Being introverted is not the same as social anxiety. Being introverted just means that you typically don't get your energy from being around people. You prefer to be alone, reading a book, working on something you enjoy personally, without others. Someone who's extroverted gets their energy from being around other people. So they feel energized by interacting and socializing. Most people are a combination of both introverted and extroverted to various degrees. There's nothing wrong with whatever combination of introversion or extroversion that you have. Introversion is not social anxiety. Social anxiety is different. Social anxiety becomes debilitating for us. An introvert just prefers to be alone. Someone who suffers from social anxiety doesn't know any other option. They even may desire to connect with others, but they feel like they can't. So how do we overcome this? How do we begin to address something so serious, so real, and so debilitating? Well, first of all, we have to really want to. So are you at a point now where you are tired of losing out on opportunities work-wise, where you're tired of losing out on opportunities in your social life, where you're tired of constantly worrying about other people's judgment? You have to be at a point where you're ready to make the change. And if you're one of those people, make sure you have your pen and paper so we can take notes. The feelings around social anxiety are disordered. And the feelings are disordered because the thoughts are disordered. Disordered literally meaning out of order, not arranged, not organized properly. So some of the feelings involve the fear of judgment, self-consciousness, inadequacy, isolation, and perfectionism. Okay? Those were fear of judgment, self-consciousness, inadequacy, isolation, and perfectionism. Do you experience any of those feelings? Notice your way of thinking, your thoughts. The thoughts that fuel social anxiety include negative self-talk, believing that you can read other people's minds, catastrophizing, trying to keep yourself safe, comparisons to others, and predicting the future. You might notice that some of these are cognitive distortions. A cognitive distortion is a fancy word for a thought or a way of thinking that is detrimental. A thought or a way of thinking that is detrimental. So, do you have negative self-talk? Constant negative thoughts about yourself, your abilities, focusing on your own flaws, focusing on your weaknesses. Now imagine you're going to walk into a party and on your mind is, I'm ugly, people aren't going to like me, people are going to judge me, I don't have the ability, I don't fit in here. Of course, you're going to have social anxiety as a result. The feeling comes from your way of thinking. The feeling, the emotional state, comes from your mental state, your way of thinking. We often feel like we can't control our feelings, but what we can control is the way we think. You get to choose your thoughts. Yes, some thoughts will come automatically, but that's the subconscious mind. It's just doing what it's supposed to do based on, or what it believes it's supposed to do based on the patterns that have existed previously. So since you previously have a habit of thinking negatively about yourself, then the subconscious mind is just doing what it's trained to do. Think negatively about you, because that's what it has always done. Does that make sense? So you have the ability to purposely, consciously think thoughts that are positive. Well, why should I think thoughts that are positive about myself? Because that's what's beneficial to change your emotional state to one of confidence, which you need in order to obliterate social anxiety, in order to survive in social interactions, in order to thrive in public speaking and meeting new people. Again, we need to choose to think positive thoughts, because thinking positive thoughts is beneficial. The beneficial way of thinking leads to beneficial ways of feeling. And you need the beneficial ways of feeling so that you won't have the social anxiety and you will have the confidence. Does that make sense? Okay, good. So we got to change the negative self-talk to what? You guessed it, positive self-talk. So what are some examples of positive things that we can say? Well, we just go to the direct opposite of the negative thoughts. Instead of I'm not good enough, it's I am good enough. Instead of no one here is going to like me, it's everyone here will probably like me. Instead of I'm not wanted, people are going to think I'm ugly, it's I am wanted, people are going to think I'm beautiful. Oh, but hey, I don't believe that. I don't believe that's true. I don't believe I'm wanted, and I don't believe I'm lovable, and I don't believe that people are going to think I'm beautiful. Again, what I asked you for was not your beliefs, because your beliefs aren't working. Your way of thinking is not effective. The negative way of thinking is not effective. It's detrimental. What I'm asking you for is positive thoughts that are beneficial. Positive thoughts that are beneficial. Think about having to do something difficult, such as the Wright brothers having to create an aircraft that can fly. So when you're trying to produce human flight, when human flight basically does not exist previously, do you think it's helpful to think negative thoughts, such as I'll never be able to do this, this doesn't exist, I'm crazy, I'm going to look crazy, I'm going to kill myself, this will no, you may believe those thoughts, but regardless, those thoughts are detrimental. What you need are beneficial thoughts, such as it could be possible. If anyone could do this, I could. This is possibly my opportunity. I think I can fly. I believe I can fly. Now, does that really reflect a person's belief at that moment? Here's the secret. It doesn't matter, because what you need are not your beliefs. What you need are positive thoughts that are beneficial. And when you say them enough, then you can start to foster a belief. And you can start to create a new bias, and then you'll start to see confirmation of that new bias, of that new belief that you are creating. What we need is not the old beliefs. So don't get caught on what you believe, get caught on what you want to believe. Start shaping what you want to believe, what you need to believe, what will be beneficial to you. Does that make sense? And as you create the thoughts that are beneficial to you, you'll start to create an emotional state that is also benefiting you. A good way to do this is to use propitious questions. It's one of the fastest ways to shut down a negative thinking state or a rumination, a negative rumination. Do you know how to form a propitious question? To form a propitious question, you'll need to focus on your goal in the situation, what it is you would like to be, do, or accomplish. And then you'll want to aggrandize the self in order to formulate the propitious question. So if my goal is to believe that I'm lovable or likable or confident, then I will aggrandize myself. I will make a statement to aggrandize the self, such as, why am I so lovable? Why am I so likable? Why am I going to be the most popular person at the party? Now, these are aggrandizing statements, right? We've exaggerated. What it does is you've created a propitious question, which is a question that is for the benefit. That's what propitious means, to one's benefit, which locks up the mind and causes it to switch tracks so that you're no longer on the track leading to detriment and social anxiety, but you've switched the track. Bam. And as you go down this track, it's going to lead you to a good place. You see, because when you ask your subconscious mind a question, your subconscious mind does what it does best, solving problems, and it will try to answer your question. So it'll say, why am I so lovable? And your mind will struggle with it, like something going up a roller coaster, and it will attempt to answer the question. But you see, by answering the question, it will do something that's propitious for you. It will give you beneficial thoughts and ideas. For instance, why am I so lovable? Well, I'm so lovable because I'm good looking and I'm funny and I'm smart and I'm right. And all of a sudden you start thinking all these things and you get some momentum going on your roller coaster. So by using propitious questions, we can get the mind to switch tracks. What are examples of propitious questions? I recommend you use a why statement, identify what the goal is, and aggrandize the self. Why am I going to crush it at this party? Why is everyone at this party going to be attracted and drawn to me? Why am I one of the most special persons who's going to be in attendance at this party? Why am I doing so well in my job? Why am I doing so well financially? Why is my success inevitable? These are propitious questions. Are you getting them? Can you think of some propitious questions that you can ask yourself before you go into a social situation? Why is my success inevitable? Why is my popularity inevitable? Why is everyone going to love me once they get to know me? Why am I so special? These are propitious questions. They are one of the most powerful mental health tools you can use. They're easy and they work immediately to switch the mindset, to take you out of the negative track, and to force the subconscious mind to answer a nearly impossible question. But when it does, the answers it will give you are going to build you up. So what about mind reading? Let me tell you something about being self-conscious. People who are self-conscious are really other people conscious, meaning they're in other people's heads, assigning what those people must be thinking about them. You see, when I'm a self-conscious person, I cannot exist around another person without assuming they're thinking something bad about me. So a self-conscious person could be walking down the street, whistling to themselves or humming or singing a song, and then they see another person. And all of a sudden, they clam up and they go, oh my God, that person probably thinks I'm so, insert negative phrase. That's self-consciousness. That person probably thinks I'm so stupid. I'm so weird. I'm so odd. I'm so unlikable. I'm so dumb, right? Something negative about the self. Well, let's dissect what just happened there. They saw another person, and then suddenly they believed that they were imbued with the special powers of reading another person's brain. So they have decided that their mind reading skills have told them that they know that that person hates them and thinks negative things about them. Now, is that down to earth or realistic? Is that practical or logical? What do you think? Can you really read other people's minds? That is fiction. Fiction is fake, funny, false. You can't read other people's minds. It's false thinking. That's living in fantasy land. Oh man, I just knew when I walked in the room, I could just feel the vibe. Everybody didn't like me. I could just tell. No, you can't. You don't know what people are thinking. I hate when people try to read my mind. They do it all the time, and they are almost always wrong. They don't know what I'm thinking. You cannot read minds. I'm sorry, you are human. Humans don't have the ability to read the brains of other people. Being self-conscious is thinking that you know what other people are thinking of you. Guess what? People really aren't thinking that much about you. They don't care about you as much as you care about you. That's the truth. People are worried about themselves. So when you walk in the room and they give you a little evil eye like that, you're thinking, oh, I caught a vibe. I know. They don't like me. There's something they don't like about me. The reality is they could be thinking, oh God, that person just came in the room and they're so much more beautiful, more attractive than I am. I'm afraid that they're going to judge me. And that could be what they're thinking. In fact, it's actually more likely that they're worried about what you're thinking of them and what everyone else is thinking of them in that moment, because they're at the party too. They're human too. They are mere mortals. You cannot read people's minds. Stop pretending you know what they're thinking. You do not. What you have is hypervigilance, which is a trauma response, and you have fear and negative thinking. Because notice, whenever you read someone's mind, there's always something negative. That's how you know you can't actually read their mind. It's always the assumption that they must be thinking something negative about you. So let's stop. Disconnect from thinking you know what they're thinking. You don't know. If you want to know what someone's thinking, the best chance you have is to walk up to them and say, hey, what are you thinking? That's your best shot. They can lie, so you will never really know what people are actually thinking. So let's review. Do you know how to read other people's minds? Do you know what they're thinking? No, you don't. No, you don't. Can we read facial expressions, body language? Yes, we can. Can we do it accurately? Not always. No. Especially when you're coming from trauma, you have a negativity bias. So when you're with a person and they sigh, your negativity bias says, oh, they're bored with me right now. Great. But that may not be why they're sighing. People sigh when their mind changes thoughts. Maybe they just thought of something and they're changing the thought, and so they sighed. Maybe they needed more oxygen. Maybe they're just taking a breath. You don't know what people are thinking. So assuming that it's negative does not make you smart. In fact, it's impairing your actual intellect because you are thinking in your feelings. And thinking in feelings is an oxymoron. You need to think with the brain. And the brain analyzes the data it truly has. So yes, some of your data is body language, but don't assume all the time that people are thinking negative about you. It is, again, a belief that is not helpful. What would be helpful? Well, if you're going to tell yourself a story, you might as well tell yourself a beneficial one. So guess what story benefits you? Assuming the best, assuming that people have positive thoughts and intentions towards you. And in reality, most people do, because when we see someone perform, when we see someone speak publicly, don't you want them to do well? Are you sitting there thinking to yourself, I hope this person really embarrasses themselves. I hope they get really awkward. I hope they stammer and they do terribly. Typically, you're like, I want to see them win. I want to see them get up there and crush it. You feel happy for them when they do well, right? So tell yourself a story that's going to be beneficial, such as everyone here is rooting for me. Everyone here wants the best for me. Everyone here is worried about themselves. They're not really thinking about me. Everyone here is going to love me regardless once they get to know me, right? And now we're projecting out into the universe around us a thought that's going to be beneficial to our emotional state. Everyone's going to love me once they get to know me. This is how a person with confidence thinks. So you may take this thought, you can steal it from a confident person, and you go think this thought, even though you don't believe it at first. Go ahead and think it. And what will happen is suddenly you'll have the strength to walk into a social situation, into a business deal, into a boardroom, into a party, a gathering, a get together. You can go out to dinner and lunch with people because you keep thinking to yourself, they're going to love me once they get to know me. They're going to love me once they get, and guess what will happen? People are going to start to love you because you're going to allow them to get to know you. This is beneficial thinking. So let's let go of the cognitive distortion of mind reading. Let's also let go of catastrophizing. Catastrophizing is imagining the worst case scenario and social outcomes and exaggerating potential embarrassment or humiliation. Don't catastrophize. You have the idea, it pops into your head, oh, everything could go wrong. Immediately fight that idea and rationalize using your logical mind. Probably that's not going to happen. The percentage chance of that happening is really 0.0 such and such, right? Don't catastrophize. Try to be logical and reasonable about each thing. Be more scientific in your approach. The reality is our social lives are a numbers game. The more people you approach, the more people will be receptive to you. You will at times get rejected, but it is a numbers game, right? As it works the same in dating, the more ladies a guy will approach, well, eventually he'll find ladies that are receptive to him and willing to share their contact information. This is how it works in the universe. It is a numbers game. It's not about meeting one person and then freaking out if it doesn't go right. It's not about catastrophizing to keep ourselves from moving forward. We create confidence by focusing our mind on positivity. The thought process of trying to keep yourself safe is very natural. But when we feel fear, we must recognize that fear is only helping us if fear is a protection. Fear is a bodyguard, right? But a bodyguard works for you. You are the CEO. So don't let the bodyguard boss you around and tell you you can't go to any parties, because that's what a bodyguard would do. You see, if you were a CEO, or let's say you were a celebrity and you said to your bodyguard, hey, there's a party coming up on Friday. There's going to be a ton of people there. There's going to be alcohol and a lot of general public being in close vicinity of me. What do you think? Your bodyguard would say, well, I think it's a safety risk and I would prefer you don't go. Why? Because your bodyguard has one job. It's to keep you safe. It makes his job a lot easier if you don't ever do anything and you stay in the house. So does that mean you should listen to your bodyguard and never leave your house? Of course not. Of course not. You are the boss. So you take the counsel from your private security and you say, thank you very much, George. I appreciate you letting me know that. We're going to the party anyway. So go ahead and create a safety plan for the party because we're going. That's how you deal with fear. Fear is your bodyguard. So you feel the fear, which is saying, don't go, don't go, don't go. And you do it anyway. Feel the fear, but do it anyway. That's how we handle fear. And that's the definition of courage. It's not that we don't have fear if we're courageous. It's just that when we feel the fear, we continue with our plans to do whatever it is we were going to do. And we move forward. So feel the fear, do it anyway. You're the CEO, the fear's the bodyguard. You're the boss. Last of all, I'll mention making comparisons to yourself and other people. Cut that out. Nobody compares to you. Nobody compares to you. Can't make any comparisons. You're a unique individual. You're one of a kind. You're the only one on earth who is exactly like you. You are uniquely qualified to live your exact purpose, to bring forth what it is that you will produce to fulfill your potential. You are one of a kind, unique, and qualified to do that. There is no one else. There's no one else that can do what you can do. That's why they invited you to the party, because there's only one you. If there were other yous, probability says you wouldn't have gotten invited. They would have invited another you. But there's not another you. There's only one you. So come, show up to the social gathering. Show up to give these speeches and these talks and these presentations. Don't compare yourself to someone else, because you are incomparable. You're one of a kind, unique. So do you think you're ready? Well, I've got all kinds of tools to share with you, but I can't share them with you tonight because I'm going to need 5 weeks. And that's why I have the 5-week social anxiety intensive. Go to the website, mindfree.org. Right there at the top of the website, you can enroll to find out what are the tools you can use. How do you walk in the room? How do you learn to own the room? How do you have the confidence when you walk in? What is it you can do? What can you be saying to yourself? What can you say to other people? How can you speak in such a way that you just crush it, that you own the situation? All of these things are to help us to be successful.